in Spanish. Trent's checking out the refreshments. And we're off to the ballet soon.
We're at the Palacio de Bellas Artes. We're going to see the Ballet Folklorico. It's our first evening. Very first evening. There's some little kids, Joni. Continue this later. This is inside the Ballet Folklorico. Beautiful.
You guys seen that this half is English?
Stage. We're in the balcony. little bit of culture. This is the this is the Mexico City version of Vanderbordy's pop truck. It's the following morning now. It's Thursday morning. I had a good overnight sleep. I've kind of gotten over the craziness of the opening day. I'll try to give you just a little bit of what we're doing. Here you see some of, oh, there's Nancy and Kathy. This is our hotel. It's El Central in the Zona Rosa, which means pink zone. There's our bus we're going to be leaving on in a few minutes. Getting on the street corner. So again, it's still our hotel. Just going to turn, take you down the street. We're in downtown Mexico City. Population of over 20 million people. Pretty busy street corner. I think this is Liverpool Street. More like England. Let's get a look at, there's a policeman carrying a rifle. They've been to the bank.
Family, maybe 5 or 6 members in the family of Panda.
This is very formal.
This hotel on the left is called Maria Isabel. I see a movie and try to pick up some new words by reading the subtitles. So there are many movie theaters in this area.
Bill, that's our guy. Wait.
Everything is salvaged and used again, maybe in another building. So they don't use hardly ever any explosives or any of these demolishing devices that great big steel ball that swings and hits. No, they do it here very slowly, very carefully, and sometimes any protection, swinging a sledgehammer to remove some of those
Side of us.
I mean, very dangerous, but that's the way they do it.
They sound Kyle, Jason, Mike, Rip, Kathy, Jeff, Tony, and Jill.
Right at this point, this is where two very important avenues cross. One of them is called Reforma, where we are now. Another one is called they call it Sanborn, the House of Tiles. This was the home of a very wealthy, very prominent Spanish family. This house was built about 250 years ago, but since about 90 years ago it had been a restaurant that belongs to a company which is a building made out of stones. When they were built, they didn't realize that the subsoil, the underpart, is very soft. So many of these buildings have metal, 3, 4 feet, 5 feet some of it. If you look to the left, when we go past
Zócalo, Main Square. There's Nancy Rhodes and her kids. Jeff. Guy. Guillermo Guerra. Guy. The guards don't like the pictures taken.
Okay.
mural of some sort. Perhaps Bill will explain that to us.
Let me explain to you for a few minutes about this painting. Come a little closer, please.
I'm going to let Bill narrate this.
Let me tell you something. Mexico City was first built by the Aztecs in the year of 1325. This is a valley, it's a round valley. It's surrounded by high mountains. There was a huge lake and an island, and this is where the Aztecs settled in the year of 1325 and built a city that looks like that over there, way up in the background. That's the way Mexico City looks. It had a different name. It was called the Great Tenochtitlan. Look at some of the pyramids, some of the temples, the houses where the people lived. And right here in front, this represents a marketplace that the Aztecs had every day in one of the squares of the city. All of that was destroyed by the Spanish when they came to conquer. There was a time, lasted about 2 years. The Spanish trying to take Mexico City by force, and the Aztecs trying to defend it. The Aztecs finally were defeated. The Spanish occupied the whole territory, and the city was destroyed. The Spanish built their own architecture on top of the ruins. This building here, it's part of it is the presidency of Mexico, and this area are fiscal offices. Treasury, fiscal offices, internal revenue, tax collecting. This is a very historical building. It was originally built for the Spanish viceroy, the highest Spanish
Supper.
and this was his residence. This building was built on top of the ruins of Montezuma. Montezuma had the famous hall right here. Montezuma was the king. This original building was destroyed by the Spanish, and the Spanish built this on top of the ruins of Montezuma's house. Right under that floor, under this building, there are many ruins of the original building in which Montezuma lived. Very fancy, very beautiful.
Paintings are 35, 40
They
years
have
old.
not been restored. They are going to be slightly restored now. When the sun goes down, they pull those curtains down to protect them from the sunlight. And that is what has kept them in very good condition. This one here is particularly colorful. Let me explain to you about it a little bit. Please come along. Before the conquest of Mexico, the whole country was a land of different Indian civilization, Indian tribes, some of them very advanced. And one of them was, besides the Maya and besides the Aztec, there were many more. One of them was called the Totonaca civilization. They had a beautiful city as a capital. The Totonaca civilization lived in a part of Mexico that is very green. Most of Mexico is dry like a desert. But Veracruz, where they settled, is very green and very productive lands. That's where the Totonaca settled. About 1,000 years ago, they built a beautiful city, the capital, called Tajín, T-A-J-I-N, Tajín. And there were many other smaller cities. They were very productive people, the Totonacas. Did not believe in human sacrifices. Instead, they believed in sports, in music, in art, in competitions, and they invented many games. One of them, the most important game, consisted in making a ball. They had rubber that far back, natural rubber. Consisted of making a rubber ball go through a ring made out of stone. Not like basketball, not like this. It was vertical. The ball was supposed to go right through it. And it's a very tough game. And you may still see many of the ball courts where they played this game. But it was not just a sport event. It was also a religious rite.
in which, this is very gruesome, but it may be true. In most books that I have read, they say that the captain of the losing team would be sacrificed to the gods. Not just because he lost, but because it was a ritual. It was sort of a sacrifice. And the reason why I believe it is true is because if you observe this man here, he's the captain of a team. And if he loses, he is also a ruler. He's like a chief. And if he loses, his son will become the ruler of the tribe. And if you observe, his son is dressed exactly the way his father is dressed. See, this is the father and this is the son. And the game is to be played right at that ball court that you see over there. They also invented many other sports and competitions, and they were very fond of music and dancing, as you can see over there. When they had a good crop, a good year, they would thank the gods by placing in the main temple fruits and vegetables and flowers, as you can see in the main pyramid, in the main stairway. So these people had a beautiful life. The Spanish came, conquered them, and from that moment on, they were not free anymore. You may see some of the totonakas here, and you may see some of the products that they grow in that area, such as tobacco, and cocoa beans, and spices, and sugar cane, and rice, all kinds of tropical fruits, as you can see right here. That's cocoa beans to make chocolate, that's tobacco, and all kinds of fruits. Let me tell you one thing very important. When the Spanish came to Mexico, there were no domestic animals at all. These Indians, they only had wild animals domesticated. Wild cats and wild birds. They only had 2 domestic animals. One of them was a turkey, and the other one was called the Mexican hairless dog, which was not a Chihuahua dog like many people think. It looked something like this. Very ugly little animal. It had no hair and had a very, very coarse skin, and did not have any sound in his throat. So the experts in animals believe it's not a real dog, some other kind of a prehistoric creature, look very much like a dog. Today they are almost extinct. There are very few of these left anymore, and you can only see them in pet shops. They call it the Mexican hairless dog. Please come. Originated somewhere in Mexico about 1,000 years ago. Cocoa beans grow in a tree. It looks like a fruit, looks like a papaya. You crack it open, and you may see a lot of almonds inside. You roast them, and then you crush them, you turn them into powder, and that's where chocolate comes from. When the Spanish came to Mexico, they found out that the Indians of Mexico drank a lot of chocolate. So the Spanish decided to try it, and they liked it. So Cortés, the conqueror of Mexico, he wrote letters to the king back in Spain and told him, Your Majesty, the Indians of Mexico produce a bean that is very nourishing. I am sending you some samples. Maybe we can grow it in Spain. I have tried it on my soldiers, and it gives them strength, it gives them energy. The only thing is that it's very bitter. You see, right here, there was no sugar at that time, so their chocolate was extremely bitter. So when the Spanish introduced the sugar cane and they started to sweeten the chocolate, then it was very delicious. And this is what the tree looks like. As a matter of fact, you call it chocolates. We call it chocolate. And the original word is an Indian word that means choco ato. Choco means bitter. Ato means water. Bitter water. That's because they used to drink it in a liquid form rather than a candy bar or anything like that. So it was very bitter, and they call it choco ato, bitter water. That Diego Rivera made in the year of 1951. Way up on top, you may see the Gulf of Mexico, and you may see some of the ships in which the Spanish expedition arrived in the year of 1519. You may see the Spanish soldiers moving inland towards Mexico City, and you may see some of the Indian tribes, some of the Indian groups that have already been conquered. They are forced to work, to build roads, to build bridges, to till the soil, to transport, to carry heavy things. And those that refuse to work or try to escape, they are punished in many different ways. And you can see way up there, some of the Spanish whipping the Indians or hanging them by the ankles or by the wrists. And when the Spanish came to Mexico, they had no women with them. It was a very dangerous mission, a very dangerous adventure. So they had no women. When they landed in Mexico, they married Indian women. You may see the baby. You see some of the Spanish soldiers were originally from northern Spain, where you may see a lot of blonde people, redhead people, blue-eyed people. So Pedro de Alvarado was one of the conquerors in that land over there. He was a Spaniard, he was blonde, he married an Indian woman, and they had a baby. The baby represents the mixture of the two races, Spanish and Indian. And this went on and on for 300 years. Most of the Mexican people at the present time are a mixture of Indian and Spanish. More Indian and less Spanish. You may see also the arrival of the domestic animals that I was telling you about. You may also see a very sweet local Mexican heritage dog who is very angry at a real dog that is just being unloaded from the ship. My friends, we are going to take a look at the big mural in Aztec Ruins. Okay, to begin with, let me explain to you the bottom part of the big mural represents the conquest of Mexico by Spain in 1519, 1520. You may see the Spanish soldiers wearing armor. The Indians of Mexico had never seen a horse in their lives. There were no horses at that time. The Indians of Mexico, the Aztecs, had never seen a firearm. They had not invented gunpowder, and they had never seen steel or iron. All of this was new to them. When they saw a Spanish soldier with armor on horseback, they were used to it. And it was very easy to go for that for the Spanish to conquer the Aztecs. The bottom part represents the conquest of Mexico. You may see some of the Aztec warriors defending themselves, defending their city. You can see them over there with bows and arrows and lances. So this war lasted 2 years, 1519, 1520. In 1521, the Aztecs were defeated. And that was the beginning of the Spanish occupation of Mexico. It lasted 300 years. In 1821, the Spanish were gone. The Mexican people, local people, they wanted to be free, they wanted to be independent. So there was a war of independence. The Spanish were defeated and they went back to Spain. So Mexico became an independent country, free country in 1821. Each one of those arches represents a different chapter in our history. Let's say there have been many wars, many foreign invasions, many civil wars and revolutions. You take, for example, in the year of 1846, 1847, Mexico and the United States were at war because of Texas, which was the United States claimed Texas, Mexico claimed Texas, so there was a war over that. And that arch shows the American eagle with the thunderbolts in its claw representing war. You may see a little building in the background. That is the building I told you about. They call it Chapultepec Castle. It was a Mexican military academy at the time, and that was the area where some of the final battles were fought between the Mexicans and the Americans in the year of 1847. Chapultepec Castle. We are going to pass by that building. I'll show it to you, and it will be very interesting, very much worthwhile for you to try and see it in your free time if possible. I'll tell you how to get there later on. In the year about the time of the Civil War in the United States, Mexico was invaded by France and occupied by France for about 5 years. During those 5 years, there was a man, an Austrian guy, his name was Maximilian, and his wife Carlotta. She was Belgian. They both ruled Mexico in the name of France for about 5 years. They were backed up, supported by the French army. They occupied Mexico for about 5 years. Please come this way. Let me show you. He was born in Austria, and he married a girl from Belgium. He was a young man, about 32, 34 years old. She was about 26, 27. Very beautiful girl, Carlotta. They were married in France, and they were invited to come and rule Mexico in the name of France, and they did. So they were here for about 5 years. Chapultepec Castle, the building I mentioned to you, used to be their home. We are going to pass by it in a few minutes. I'll show it to you. He made himself a multi-millionaire. He helped the rich people. He did not do anything for the poor. So there was a revolution, and he was ousted in the year of 1910. His last name was Diaz. General Diaz was ousted by a revolution in the year of 1910. If you observe in the background, you may see several names in English. You may see the Pierce Oil Company of London. You may see the Standard Oil Company in New York, and many others. Okay, this man, the man with the medals in his chest, he's the dictator, Mexican general I'm telling you about. He was the president of Mexico, and he gave a lot of concessions to foreign companies to exploit the raw materials that were here. Mining, oil, many foreign companies were in Spain. It was compulsory to be a Catholic. And many people refused to be Catholic. So when they were caught, they were tortured. And they were forced to accept Christianity. You may see a man, a Catholic priest, with a crucifix, forcing them to accept Christianity. And at the same time, they are being tortured. This is called the Holy Inquisition. It was a very cruel, very, very terrifying. Okay, you please follow me. I'm going to just built by the Aztecs. You may see the big pyramid that is right here, and many other Aztec temples.
Was once an Aztec temple.
So this is the place where the Aztecs had their main pyramid. It was very tall. Very tall. It must have been about 200 feet. It had a temple at the very top to worship the god. And this pyramid was facing the west. It was facing the west. And there was a wide, beautiful avenue in front of it. All the way to the banks of the lake. You see, this island was about 4 miles across, and there was water all the way around. The Valley of Mexico City, I would say, is about 45 miles from one end to the other. It's a round valley, mountains all the way around. You can see some of the mountains over there. And if it was a clear day, you could see some more mountains over there. It's about 40 miles from one end to the other. So that whole valley was a lake. Right in the center was an island, and that's where the Aztecs built. How did they do it?
They say she's pretty. Is that Bella?
No.
I don't know.
Momentitos.
She was begging for her children.
No, no.
Gigante dándote gracias de nuevo, lo pasó a sus discípulos diciendo: tomad y bebed todos de él, porque este es el cáliz de mi sangre, sangre de la alianza nueva y eterna, ya derramada por vosotros y por todos los hombres para el perdón de los pecados. Haced esto.
Well, incense is extremely see the haziness on film.
Thinner than
Made out of
silver.
hand-carved wood and covered with gold leaf.
This is the most important church of all. It's a cathedral, but it's not as beautiful as it used to be at the beginning. There has been a lot of wars, a lot of stealing, a lot of ransacking, destruction, lots of shooting around here many times, many wars, many revolutions, a lot of foreign invasions. So it has been, some of the biggest treasures have been stolen from here, but it is the most important cathedral of all. Please come.
Guillermo says this is the most important cathedral in Mexico, especially in Mexico City, compared to the absolutely unbelievably gorgeous cathedrals of Europe. This is not as I think it would be or should be. Service going on in a smaller part of the cathedral. Museum of Anthropology. Really? Chapultepec Park.
Settlements, villages that go from the very small villages all the way up to the great big metropolis, and all of them were built, some of them 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago. There were several very important Indian cultures, and they erected magnificent cities. And then they vanished, they disappeared, and the ruins are practically all over. One of the most important cultures, very advanced and very, very interesting, the Maya civilization. They started, about 1,500 years ago in Guatemala, in a part of the American continent that today is Guatemala. The Maya civilization, all of this represents the Maya civilization. It's very green there, real tropical jungle, and there are many, many ancient cities, very beautiful, all covered up by the vegetation, by the jungle. The most impressive one of all is called Tikal, Tikal. It's in Guatemala, right in the jungles of Guatemala, far away from approximately some very primitive hunters. You see, this is supposed to be springtime. This is supposed to be Siberia. And this is supposed to be Alaska right here. Bering Strait. Hunters chasing herds of animals for food, first to Canada, across the United States, little by little, they started to settle all over this area. But most of them settled in this area where it doesn't get too cold. Maybe others came across the Pacific from Polynesia to South America, such as the Incas and many other important. About 20 miles from here on the way to the pyramids, we are going to pass very near the place where they found a skeleton about 35 years ago. And the most important thing about it is the fact that the archaeologists who found the skeleton, they discovered a man-made spearhead made out of stone in one of the ribs of the animal. And they were able to prove that that animal had been hunted down somewhere here in Central America, in Mexico. The experts agreed, the experts believe that corn started as a wild plant and very small, like weeds. There was a time when an ear of corn was an inch long. It was a wild plant that some of these very primitive hunters learned how to domesticate, how to grow it in their own land. And the centuries went by, and there was some sort of an evolution. Look at the size of an ear of corn. Look how big an ear of corn was 5,000 years ago. There has been an evolution. The plants were 1.5 feet, 2 feet high. Now, corn plants grow up to 10, 12 feet high. It is very likely that corn started somewhere in this area. And this is one of the villages, one of the very old first villages.
Still at the Anthropological Museum. A rather unique looking fountain.
And we have plenty of time. And it is facing the sunset. The sunset's right in front of it, especially on June the 21st. That's the summer solstice. That's about the only day of the year in which the four sides of the pyramid, at 12 noon, the four sides of the pyramid become illuminated by the sun very evenly. The pyramid of the moon, the second biggest, the main avenue, which is known as the Avenue of the Dead. We are going to see all that tomorrow. The Road of the Dead, the Citadel, and some of these little tiny houses that you see all the way around is where the common people lived. It was some sort of a sacred city, a city to worship the gods, and only the very important people, the ruling class, the high priests, the architects, the engineers, the astronomers, the very important people lived in the main part of the city. Common people, peasants, the farmers, ignorant people, poor people lived far away from the city. There, all the volcanoes were already extinct. You will find this tomorrow. Very, very interesting.
Is there anything about these people that they wore helmets?
No, I don't think so. They did play some sort of a game that I was telling you about this morning, and they did wear some kind of a head protection to hit the ball with, but not a regular helmet. So that's what we are going to see tomorrow. All of these objects that you see here, pieces of pottery, they discovered that the inhabitants of Teotihuacan, the Indians of Teotihuacan, traveled all the way to Central America, to Guatemala, to trade, to sell and to buy, to exchange, to barter. This was a very important thing, and they were very, very well organized. They had groups of carriers, people that were men that were trained for a job they would do all their life, to carry heavy loads in their back. As you can see right here, these men, a professional carrier, groups of 500, 1,000 men traveling all the way. Please do not lean on the showcases, on the glass. Travel all the way to Guatemala to sell, to buy, to exchange. And this is the reason why you may see these arrows pointing in all directions. Teotihuacan was located right here. So they came all the way to Guatemala. This is the peninsula of Yucatan. And this is, right here you may see the arrows pointing back to Teotihuacan, which means that these ancient people traded, they exchanged, they bought, they sold, and traveled practically all over, carrying heavy loads in their backs. Human caravans. And these people, these carriers were respected, you see, by everybody, because the job they did was very important. If there was a war going on, for example, between two tribes, they would start fighting so these people could get through. It was a group of 1,000 carriers with a sling across their foreheads and a heavy load in their back, and they had some kind of walking stick about 7 or 8 feet long. That's all they carried for support. And if there was a war going on, they would stop, these people could get through, and then they would continue to fight after they had passed. Plaster. It was covered with stucco and bright colors. There was a temple at the very top that does not exist anymore. And the idea of that temple was to worship the gods and maybe even perform human sacrifices. The pyramids of Egypt and the pyramids of Mexico are altogether different, because in Mexico, most of the pyramids were built to worship the gods. Very few times a body, a tomb, has been found inside the pyramid. This is a replica of one of the pyramids, one of the temples in Teotihuacan that we are going to see tomorrow. Very fancy city, very colorful. And now, today, it's practically of the building. This is the halfway line right here, and that is the Aztec calendar, the original, the authentic Aztec calendar, which was kept on top of the pyramid, and it helped a lot to measure time, very much like a sundial. All of these artifacts that you see here, we're going to see them all in a few minutes. What you see there used to be on top of a pyramid, very close to the cathedral. As a sacrificial stone, the Aztecs believed in sacrificing humans to the gods, especially in times of droughts, in times of problems, epidemics, plagues of any kind. They would sacrifice humans to the gods, and possibly, there is no way of knowing for sure, but it is very likely that men and women, maybe even children, were sacrificed to the gods on top of this stone, which weighs about 12 tons, solid rock, solid basalt. I was saying to you a few minutes ago that they did not have any metal, hard metal. So their knives were made out of stone, as you can see right here. These are sacrificial knives.
What we're looking at is a replica of Montezuma's headdress.
This is a museum in Vienna. It's hard to know how it went there. They believe that when the Spanish came to Mexico, it is for sure that the Spanish king at that time lived in Vienna. And it is very likely that some of these conquistadors, they wanted to be in good terms with the king, the Spanish king, and they sent him all kinds of treasures found here in Mexico. This is how, maybe, the original Montezuma's headdress was taken to Vienna. It'd be 40 miles from one side to the other. You may see in that painting what the valley looked like that far back. This is the year of 1519, 1520. At that time, the Aztecs had already lived there for about 200 years. They had settled there in that island in 1325. So they had already built a city on that island. And you may see some of the causeways, some of the roads that connect the island with the mainland. There were 3 main causeways, one to the left, which is north, one to the right, which is south, and one coming towards us, which is west. There was not one to the east because it's too far away, too difficult to build. So that's the way the city looked when the Spanish came. In the center of the island, you may see this main plaza or square that I was telling you about this morning. And that plaza was really beautiful. Inside of it, this is what the Aztecs had there. Their main buildings, their main temples, different kinds of buildings. You take, for example, the main pyramid with two temples at the top. The one painted blue was dedicated to the water god, rain god, whose name was Tlaloc. And then you may see the red temple, dedicated to the war god, whose name was Huitzilopochtli. And right here, at the very center right in front of the pyramid, there was a road, wide causeway, wide road, as you can see, right in front of that square on the painting. Over to the left, you may see another rectangular plaza. Looks very busy. That's where the Aztecs had every day a very busy market. In a few minutes, we're going to see a miniature of the marketplace in that corner over there, and that's the painting we saw this morning. Behind the mountains, the two snow-covered mountains, that's east, that's Veracruz, that's the Gulf of Mexico. And that's where the Spanish expedition came in the year of 1520. They came over the mountains. It was a small army, but very powerful. And at the beginning, when the Spanish first came to the city, there was no war, there was no violence. It was sort of a friendly meeting at the gates of the city between Moctezuma and Cortez. Moctezuma came out to the gates of the city to meet the Spanish, invited them to come in, gave a place to stay, but little by little, eventually, the whole thing developed into a full-scale war that lasted another year. Not until 1521, it was the month of August, when the Aztecs were finally defeated and the city totally destroyed. The years went by, the centuries went by, and the lake dried out, it was drained out, and Mexico City got bigger and bigger. At the present time, it covers the whole area where you see the water. The most important project that the Aztecs built is a dike, like a dam, to separate the salty waters of one lake, separate them from the fresh water of another lake. You may see a thin line from left to right. It looks like she did each and every figure. When this museum was being built about, 1964, 25 years ago, she was making all of these figures represents this very busy market that the Aztecs had every day in one of the plazas of the city. If you observe, you will see all different ages. Some of the little babies, you may see 5, 6-year-old children, all the way up to the very old people. You may also see the different classes of people. There was a difference. There was a difference in class among the Aztecs, from the very poor and ignorant, all the way up to the royal, the noble people, the wealthy people, such as the man that you see right at the center. He's right over there. See with a nice cape and jewelry and a headdress and all kinds of fancy things. Surrounded or being followed by some of his probably, I assume, assistants, bodyguards, or whatever. And then you may see the very poor, you may see the very ignorant. And the whole market was divided in sections. You may see vegetables right here. You may see, for example, different kinds of grain right there, like beans, corn, lentils, garbanzos. And then you may see all kinds of meats and live animals if you observe, you may not see any real domestic animals that I was telling you about. Not until the Spanish came, they started to see cows and horses and sheep and goats and real dogs and chickens and all that. Prior, it's true. It's a true story. I'm going to show you the Maya room for a few minutes and then we will go to the bus. And back to the hotel, and on Saturday we will have.
Yeah, Aztec calendar. This is the original. This is not a recreation. All done with stone tools.
Guatemala, Yucatan, and someday you have a chance, go there. You will find it extremely interesting. Let me tell you, this thing here, listen to me please for just a minute. This thing here, we call it in Spanish stela. Maybe in English, many people call it stel. S-T-E-L-L-E, stel. And they were erected by the Mayas and record. Make a recording of all of the important events that had taken place in that particular community for, let's say, a 20-year period or a 40-year period. And usually, right in the center of the stele, they would have the face, the picture of the ruler. This is not an authentic one. The authentic one is in Guatemala. This is a reproduction, but all of those symbols and glyphs and hieroglyphics, they tell a story that has not been deciphered. It is very difficult to decipher the Maya writing. This is a replica of another very important stone found in Guatemala that tells a whole story, but only 5 or 10% of the Maya writing has been deciphered. It's extremely difficult. They are trying very hard, and maybe someday they will make a major breakthrough. But for the time being, very little has been learned about the Maya writing, the Maya civilization. Please come this way. It was very hard because they had no oxen, no mules, no animals to do. They had to do it themselves. So they are building those magnificent cities.
Mexico City at night. We are on the 10th floor of our hotel. What you're seeing is a view of the city. Now about ready to go down. Get ready, hang on. What you're seeing are the balconies of our hotel. All the way down the street. What a city. 20 million people. Together, patio, we have 2 patios. We're looking a totally different direction. Give you a little bit of the sign scenery. Traffic. This is directly down from the balcony now. See the streets as we're walking. As the people are walking along. So we're rather high up in the air. If this gives you any kind of perspective. And you get somewhat of the same scenery we just saw from the other balcony. Now is the old shrine of Guadalupe.
Yes, it is.
They also have built a new shrine of Guadalupe because the old one couldn't handle all the tourist traffic.
Is that one there on top of the hill? Because this is supposed to be.
See that huge crack? The church?
This is not confirmed. Not for sure.
The church. This is the old shrine. It's telling us that it wasn't built on solid foundation. It's sinking on one side.
This man was Juan Diego. He was an Aztec Indian.
This is the original one built in 1532. this one about 7 or 8 years ago. About 1981.
One of the shallow lake that started right here. So the cathedral where we were yesterday is right at the end of this street. But at one time, there was water on one side, water on the other. The beginning of the causeway, all the way to the island where Mexico City was. So this man, Juan Diego, had to pass by here every morning when he went to church. And the legend says that the Lady of Guadalupe appeared to him and told him, Juan Diego, please deliver a message to the bishop. Tell him that I want a church built right here for the Indians of Mexico who now have been converted to Christianity. So he delivered the message and the church was built. The first one is the little one on top of the hill. Very small. Too small to accommodate thousands of people that came here to see this place. So this was built later. Unfortunately, ever since they built it, started to lean. As you can see, it's leaning to one side. And it developed a lot of cracks, but they think they can level it off. This building was leaning years ago. Unbelievable. They poured a concrete slab under it, and it was raised on one side with very powerful jacks. And they think they can do the same to this one. And then restore the cracks, fix it up, make it beautiful again, and open it up to the public. Right now it's closed for safety and for repairs. Right there, my friend, some of you are probably taking a little bit of Spanish. Okay, let me tell you what that means. When the lady appeared to Juan Diego, the Indian, he was complaining, he was telling the lady that he was a very poor man, that he was very lonely, he was a widower, and she's supposed to have told him, Juan Diego, you are not alone. I am here to help you, to assist you, to comfort you. Am I not here to help you as if I was your mother? That is more or less what that particular phrase reads. That is the reason why you see the question marks. Am I not here to assist you, to help you as if I was your mother? That's exactly what that phrase means. The Pope, the present Pope, came to Mexico about 10 years ago, 9 years ago. And from that altar, he officiated, he performed a mass in front of about 20,000-30,000 people that came here to see him. This church will not ever sink or lean. It will not be damaged by an earthquake because it's a very special kind of construction. They had to excavate deep into the ground, the equivalent to about 12 or 14 stories, very deep into the ground, with a very solid foundation made out of steel and reinforced concrete. So they say it's earthquake proof and will not ever sink.
There's a girls' school group here today. It's the very end of the school year for the Mexican children, and there are probably, I don't know, maybe 500-600 of them, more. The little ones are over on the other side. They're all dressed alike. They're maroon socks and blazers. Except for the fact that they look Mexican. They're dressed exactly like our school kids as if they're in uniforms. Hairstyles the same, bows in the hair. Inside of the new shrine of Guadalupe was built only about 7 or 8 years ago. There's a beginnings of a mass going on right at the moment. Pipes for the it's very modern looking. Very
Confession.
much prefer the old. We can't go in there. They're not safe.
They have 2 organs.
Wolf's Shrine. This is the image that the Lady of Guadalupe or the Virgin Mary supposedly imprinted upon a blanket for Juan Diego. On a little moving estoy yo aquí, que soy tu madre. No estás por ventura y rezado. Really, an awful lot of manual labor in this country. There's no welfare system, so they hire a lot of people. Instead of doing it with machines, they do a lot of work by hand. To the oldest shrine of Guadalupe, the one that was first built. Stairways are very pretty, very intricate. They are manicuring the gardens here. We're still on our way up to the shrine. I sound out of breath. There are many steps and a very high elevation. We're about 7,000 or 8,000 feet above sea level. Whereas back in Illinois, we're used to being about 10 or 15 or 20 feet above sea level. Stairway we've been climbing. Many levels, many steps. We're not coming up to the top yet. I'll show you how far we've come. There's the new shrine. There's the second one. At the back, I'm at the top. You can see the construction, restoration going on. Kathy and Susie against the sun. I don't know if you'd be able to see it real well. Okay. Finally reached the top. Trip found a lizard.
There's two other guys sitting on the rail in the guard.
I'm at the top. You can see it's cloudy today. It's hazy. A certain portion of the city of Mexico. Trip, Trent, and Nancy. This is the original Shrine of Guadalupe. The zoom working on it. Supplication, I do believe. It's a very interesting looking church from the top of the Shrine of Guadalupe. Top of the Shrine of Guadalupe, there seems to be a market going on down there. I'm going to get a little different angle to see. I'm shooting through a tree here. I'm going to leave you for same spot, but about 15 feet over. Seems to be a marketplace getting ready. It's Friday. It's a usual day for market.
around here. Extinct volcano right there.
Lost your sound.
You know what the problem is? With the windows open, it's very hard. We're getting all the noise from the outside. So if you want to close the window for a
Very old Spanish
built
monastery.
between 1536 and 1560. The idea of these monasteries was to convert the Indians to Christianity, like a mission, like the missions in California.
Little cactus hedge running all along the fence. We are at the pyramids at Teotihuacan. There is the Pyramid of the Moon.
Modern times. In other words, I was here 20 years ago when this was just a mound. Right here was like a hill. The archaeologists came with shovels and brushes, very small tools. You have to be very careful. You use a spoon, even a toothpick, a brush, remove the dirt little by little. So they uncovered all of this about 20 years ago, and the archaeologists believe that this was the residence of some of the high priests. In a few minutes, you are going to see the main square in front of a pyramid where they had the most important religious ceremonies. Okay, another one there, all the way around. The two animals that are in very good state of preservation, they are over there.
These are some of the animals that have been preserved in the Palacio de los Jaguares.
These wooden beams are not original. They were put there about 20 years ago when this was restored. And they believe these were rooms. The archaeologists and the historians do not know exactly where these people came from. They don't even know what their names, the name of their culture was. We refer to them as the Teotihuacano culture, Teotihuacano civilization, because they settled here, and this is known as the Valley of Teotihuacan. When they arrived, when they settled here about 2,000 years before Christ, 200 years before Christ, they already had a lot of knowledge. They were not ignorant. They were not savvy.
The Aztecs didn't have any metal. All of the carvings, everything was done with stone tools.
High, made out of stone, and there was continuous water running from here. So they had clean water. They had not pipes, not regular pipes, but they could make the equivalent to a pipe out of ceramic, out of terracotta, for the clean water to run. Right next to this wall, there is something that looks like a bathtub. So they had means of taking a bath. They knew how to make soap from the cactus plants. They knew much about chemistry, much about medicine. They could heal. They could take care of wounds with herbs, with roots, and a little bit of black magic too, because they were quite superstitious. A little bit of medicine man, witch doctor, so to speak. So these were some of the rules. Seems to indicate that religion was the most important activity. Their personal comfort, their personal safety did not matter. They were willing to sacrifice. They were willing to do anything to keep the gods in heaven. It worked very hard. And they were very exact. Where they had their most important religious. These mounds were tombs. The people were there. And they are the ones that started to call this street of the some excavations were made recently, and they never found any gold. The pyramids are perfectly solid inside. The whole purpose of a pyramid was to build a temple that's very fast. To be very close to heaven. Once you die, have the religious ceremony.
Okay, here we go. We're going to make the climb to the top of the Pirámide del Sol. I'll let you know after I get down from the top how the trip was. Well, we are only about less than a third of the way to the top, and I'm already tired. We've been trying to be sold everything except their firstborn. I'll give you a shot at where we have to go from here. Oh, and some tired ladies. And that's not the top. Oh, we're about halfway to the top now. Here is Rose and Al, who are on the next level down. People are discouraging us to saying it's not worth it to go back. I'm beginning to believe them. And I shall show you where we go from here.
That's a good shot of the route.
And there are some of our tired travelers also resting.
It's funny to see at the beginning of the year what we look like in the middle of summer.
Yeah. We made it to the top. We're the survivors.
Where's the pyramid? There's the pyramid.
We did. We made it to the top. There's the Pyramid of the Moon. There are some more survivors. We're at the top. Backside. Las montañas. Mountains. Ancient Pyramid of the Sun I'm standing right on top of. Built by the Teotihuacanes over 2,000 years ago. Then they abandoned it for a couple hundred years and the Aztecs found it. And they've been slowly but surely unearthing it for the last 25 or 30 years, the archaeologists. That's the guy Nancy just bought the whistle from, bending over there in the yellow shirt. She wanted a picture of him. I made it back down to the bottom. I didn't die. They didn't have to sacrifice me or nothing, folks. That's the temple, the Pyramid of the Moon. Here's the one we just climbed. Okay, we had to wade knee-deep through street vendors. Tell them no 8,000 times. There's Guillermo and Carlos, our two ALSG guides. I don't know who the man gestured.
Mexico City. It's also one of the hardest hit by the earthquake.
Here's this policeman. He's got his Navy uniform on, a white cap, white gloves, and white armbands. You know, up to his elbows. He's directing traffic and getting off the steamer. He's going, "Hi, welcome to sunny England, and it's snowing." You know?
This is Chapultepec Heights.
Very nice homes around here.
Very nice residential area.
Very old section. Some of these houses go back to about 100 years. It's a little higher than Mexico City. They built some very important driveways. So some of the streets that we are crossing are named Antonio de Mendoza, was the first viceroy of Mexico, came in 1536. There is a street here named after a viceroy whose last name was Galvez. Galvez, he organized an expedition all back into the 1600s, all the way to an area where today is called Galveston. Galveston was originally called Galvestown. That's in Mexico, Galveston. But these are considered expensive even here. So I would say an average house around here would go up to $120,000, $140,000, $150,000 American money. It varies depending on the location, the amount of land, the type of construction, the size of construction. If you don't have a fence, somebody passes by, they pick it up. A toy, a bicycle, anything. If you don't have any kind of a fence, it is very likely that they will pick it up and go and sell it somewhere else. So privacy, protection.
These are single and multi-family dwellings. The families are quite big. After the children marry, they stay with
That's one of the problems
the
of
original
Mexico.
family.
Some people have a lot, too much. And some people, the majority have nothing.
And cinemas over there. The mountains that surround the city are mostly extinct volcanoes.
Cuernavaca is on the other side of this mountain. It's about 50 miles, 55 miles away.
They're quite green right now because it's the beginning of the rainy season. It's about 40 miles across from one side to the other. The city stretches about 24 miles. It's all in a valley that was covered with water inside these mountains.
Home of the 1968 Summer Olympics, where Bob Beamon set the world's record in the long jump. Smith and Carlos held up their black-fisted hands. George Foreman won the heavyweight boxing championship.
The emblem, the symbol of this university is an eagle and a condor, back to back, so to speak. And this means it's a form of mythology, like the Greek man. The plume served like a flying dragon. So that represents the ancient beliefs, the ancient religion, the most important one. The most important part of the whole design is the back. Okay, I wanted to show you the interior of this
All of the
building, but it's
rocks you
closed.
see in this mural
So we
have
should
not
go
been
right
painted,
to the-
according to our guide, Guillermo.
Some of the gates are open. It's
Colored
very
rock.
nice inside. Let me
Assembled and
tell you
put
why.
together by Diego
Because you
Rivera.
are right now looking only half of the stadium.
The buildings at the University of Mexico. The famous library building. Universidad Nacional de Mexico. Get a better shot of it when I get closer. Because we're not really all that close. I'm not that close to it yet. You lose sight of it when I back up a little bit.
But let me tell you what these two laws are. One of them reads that education in Mexico is not to be commercialized in any way. Education is supposed to be free and compulsory. That sounds nice, but in reality, It hasn't worked out at night. You see, this university, this college is free. You can go to college and you don't pay anything. You pay a minimum inscription fee or it's not a tuition, it's just an inscription fee, a registration fee they call it, registration fee. And all of our schools are supposed to be free, all of them. But let me tell you, they are free. But they are so crowded, this university, because it's free and there are so many poor people in Mexico, it's super crowded, overcrowded. So much that it's impossible anymore. So when registration comes, I have seen young guys and girls here waiting in line 48 hours. They have to sleep there 2 nighs, eat right there, and wait for their turn. Because there is so much demand for free, and anything that is free, there is much demand for. Okay, so we also have some private colleges that you have. Colleges in which you have to pay a lot of money. So most of the people cannot afford. This university is still a very good school, but they have all kinds of problems and frictions and groups which are hostile to one another, and protests and demonstrations, and even there has even been violence and riots, and many fathers and many parents, they don't want to send their children to this university because of that. They are afraid. You see, they have been too many problems, probably because of the fact that it's overcrowded. So this law looks nice on paper, but in reality, it's not so good. So we have a good education system. We have plenty of schools, plenty of colleges, but the problem is that they are overcrowded. When the time comes to go back to school, you have to wait a long, long time.
Is it first come, first serve?
Yes. And I have seen young guys waiting 48, 72 hours in line.
Is there a certain amount that they'll take?
Yeah.
And the ones that are...
And then you have to pass a series of tests, sufficiency tests. Your marks, your record in a previous school has to be very good, so it is really tough. This university alone has over 100,000 students. From here, you are looking at 10% of what this school really is. There's much more way over there. It's like a city. Buildings to the right, buildings to the left. It's an enormous place. This is easy because it's Saturday, but you should see this on weekdays. There's over 100,000 students here. Okay, whose great-grandfather was an immigrant from Ireland. His last name is O'Gorman. This artist was born in Mexico, but his grandfather came from Ireland. O'Gorman is the man, he's an architect. He passed away recently. He was an architect and an artist, a muralist, a painter. So he made a mural first on the 4 sides, and then in order to make it weatherproof, to make it permanent forever, so that the rain and the sun will not affect it. So he covered the whole mural with little pieces of mosaic tile. There must be millions of little pieces of tile to make it weatherproof, make it stay there forever. That's the library building, administration building. These two arms and hands reaching for books. It was painted by a man whose name was Siqueiros. And for many, many years in the past, education in Mexico was a privilege of the wealthy people. 90% of the people were very poor, very ignorant, illiterate. So that represents the hands of the people, the hands of the masses, reaching for an education, reaching for an opportunity to educate themselves. You may see the four dates. 1520, that's when Mexico was conquered by Spain. In 1810, we became an independent country from Spain. In 1857, we had a separation of church and state. And in 1910, we had a social revolution. And then there was at the bottom, 19 question mark. Meaning that what important event will happen in the future of our history that will be important enough to record it right there. But you see, the students here lately, they have been doing a lot of painting and a lot of graffiti, so they put some white paint, 19, and then put 88, I think it's 88 because they had a big demonstration here. Let me go public transportation.
Backside of the building, there's
Subway
a
train that comes over
painting. I think they said this was the administration
It's a
building.
new line.
It does look new.
Yeah, and it's really a big help because most of the things at country school have a very low, very low.
University Museum of Science and Arts.
About this design. The building does not have any windows because you have nothing but bookshelves. Okay, so the reading rooms are down below, and the two big circles, two great big circles. Okay, so it represents two theories. The one to the left, Ptolemy, I believe he was an astronomer from Alexandria, as you know, and he sustained the idea. He believed that the Earth was the very center of the universe. You see, look at the Earth, and look at all the constellations rotating around it, which is wrong. And then there was, centuries later, Copernicus, I believe he was a Polish astronomer who had a much clearer vision, a much more accurate idea of the universe. So he puts the sun right in the center of the solar system. You can see the sun, and then you can see the constellations rotating around. In other words, the planets, the rest of the planets, which is very accurate. It is the way it really is. So all of those designs represent either the history of Mexico or the history of education, and the four sides are decorated in a very similar way. They must have employed over 100,000 pieces of mosaic tile to decorate the whole building. So all of the different faculties, all of the different laboratories and classrooms, it's spread in a very large area. Administration offices right here.
Some of the other folks that are staying in our hotel.
They have their own radio station from 8 to 1. And another group of students go to the same classroom, altogether different group from 2 to 6:30. And so we have a shortage of schools, shortage of classrooms, and the population explosion is tremendous. You see, this mural more or less represents all of those people that you see in the back, waiting in line, marching, protesting. They want better opportunities, a nicer chance to educate themselves. And these figures right here, they are university, college graduates, technicians of different kinds, architects, builders, engineers, helping to develop the country. Unfortunately, you cannot see the whole thing because they are restoring. They're going to clean the whole thing. And part of it is covered. But this represents the university, college graduates, helping to build up the country, which for many years, for centuries, we lacked just about everything. Roads, communications, no telephone, no telegraph, no bridges, hardly any electricity, problems with the agriculture, lack of water, all kinds of problems, you see, trying to be solved by these technicians. This mural is unusual because it's not flat. It's their own music. They usually have a picnic here. Lots of people like to come and buy plants and flowers. They're very reasonable. The days of the Aztecs. You see this area, perfectly flat. This was a lake. This whole area was a lake. And the Indians that live here, they were Aztec Indians, did not have enough flat land to grow their food or their flowers. Especially food was more important. So they built thousands and thousands of rafts, pontoons made out of wood, with soil on top of them. And they managed to grow corn and beans and squash and pumpkin and tomatoes and all kinds of vegetables were grown on real floating gardens.
The lake dried out. Now the original floating gardens do not exist. These lakes that we are going, these canals that we are going to see in a few minutes, they're drying out.
It's a good thing I didn't have the camera on.
I thought you did. What did she say?
Don't repeat it. I do have the camera on.
Yeah, Susie, what'd you say?
What?
But
Smart enough. Yeah, I did. But Jeff was smart enough. He's so smart enough. Smart
What are those little people selling things? Okay, there's Trent's mariachis. You'll have a dose of those babies.
what the heck is mariachi? The heck is it? It works. Bam! Had a wreck.
Muchas gracias, sí.
Those were over the front for like a one.
Potato chips. The rest of my chicken.
Have yolk, Miss Trainer.
Ah, yolk's on you.
Very good.
Another banana.
Yep. I just shell those out one after another.
I got this model one. Oh, yeah?
Just pull up on the end. Just do this split trip.
Trip.
No, there's still a little bit.
Here, pass down.
Oh, that one. Just check the boxes.
Hey, there's a new dog. Pass down the box.
Hey, go for
Sue's
that.
duck.
Dad, on.
Get that. Yeah, you better like it. Oh, it's just on it.
Don't egg him on. That's me. He's like real jumpy.
Don't egg.
Well, how's he gonna get back up there?
Be surprised.
On the back, stupid. Maybe.
Not meet ever again.
Look out. Gotta get that.
All the boats. Yeah, there are many places where
You're out on the water.
Gross.
What? Oh, I was gonna.
I need glasses, but I don't.
Hey, would you take one of the holes? Yeah.
The babies. Smile, you're on Canada. Gee, Mom, there's this pretty dress in Mexico I want. Can I get it? You go back down.
In a marketplace. Some very beautiful blankets. How would you guys like to talk to me?
I'm gonna go barter.
Say hello to Wyoming High School,
Oh no!
Toulon High School.
Hi, Mom. Hola. Hey, ciao. Adios. Adios.
You see, you'll get to watch this in Spanish class next year. ¿Cuál es su precio por esta?
Por uno de estos 60,000.
¿Perdón?
60,000.
¿En dólares?
Dólares son como 27. Son de...
You made a sale.
A ver, se lo voy a poner en una bolsa. No volteen, niñas. Volteate para allá. No volteen para acá.
Being shy.
Señoritas,
No voltees.
hablan a mis estudiantes en los Estados Unidos, por favor.
Por muy estudiantes, ¿no? Son niñas. Alright, how much is in dollars?
Gusto de Xochimilco.
I think Brian.
I'm just walking and taking pictures of everything that I see. I hear the people talking all around me.
The final game was played here between Argentina.
The largest stadium in Mexico.
Aztec Stadium.
Only soccer is right there.
This is our hotel. It's Hotel Century Zona Rosa. Tall, very nice, first-class hotel, not very wide. 21 stories tall. Hotel Century. Rest.
Oh, we're blinking.
Yeah. That means you don't have enough light.
Oh, yes, you're
That
right.
doesn't mean you have low on power.
You're right. This is home while we're in Mexico City.
Supper's locked.
Beautiful room. 2 balconies.
Just locked.
Little living area to rent. That's his bedroom. Makes into a bed. Gorgeous marble bathroom with a huge circular tub. Circular marble bathtub. Our kids would think it was a little-sized swimming pool.